And pause. Ready. Okay, recording in progress. Okay, well, ladies, thank you. Ladies, and I remember a couple of gentlemen on here. I don't know a couple of the phones, but my name is Melinda Haak, and I am a nutritional health coach. And Shayna asked me to come on and speak about something that I have been doing a deep dive into in the last 6 months to a year as I'm just furthering education on insulin resistance. And it's honestly an area that I was not as educated in. And as I began learning more and more, I went, oh, wow, there's people, yeah, so many of us need this information. And so I started teaching a couple of classes last month, and then Shayna asked me to come and do a class here for you guys. So I'm going to dive in and just kind of get started. If everybody wants to get a pen and paper, um, I find I learn best and I remember best if I can just jot it down. And so there were things that I will be sharing tonight that some of you may already know. There are things that some of you, like, it's going to be new information for us. But my goal for tonight is one, to help bring awareness to what 93% of Americans struggle with. So I don't want you to hear like, oh, I'm a bad person or I'm doomed or, whatever, because 93% of us are in the same boat, myself included. As well as, but we have solutions, not as well as, but we have solutions. They're actually fairly simple solutions to help reverse what is, I really think, is an underlying root cause of our epidemic of disease in the United States. And so, a really good book, if you want to deep dive into this, is by Why We Get Sick by Dr. Ben Bickman. And let me put that in the notes. Why We Get Sick by Dr. Ben Bickman. So if you want to do a deep dive into this, I would highly recommend that book. It's an easy read. Like it's deep, but it's written for lay people. So let me put it that way. So, and a lot of my notes actually came from this book and then some of the other deep dive stuff I did. So like I said, 93% of Americans, so the vast majority of us on this call have some degree of insulin resistance. Another word might be metabolic dysfunction. And insulin resistance, I'm going to put my reading glasses on for my notes too. Insulin resistance is the underlying cause of over 70% of chronic diseases today, including obesity, diabetes, and I'm talking type 2, heart disease, Alzheimer's, which was a surprise to me, and many cancers. The Alzheimer's one was, like I said, a new one for me. 80 to 90% of the medications that we take today are because of underlying insulin resistance. And most of us don't have a clue that we have insulin resistance. That number was staggering to me. Over 80% of people with high blood pressure have insulin resistance. And most doctors do not know how to treat the root cause. They're simply treating the symptoms, which is the high blood pressure. And like I said, there is the high chance that most of us on this call struggle in some form or fashion with insulin resistance. And yes, some people do have more of a genetic predisposition to this. So if you struggle with stubborn weight gain, sugar cravings, brain fog, fatigue, stubborn belly fat, some pretty severe hormonal imbalances, those are all signs and signals of insulin resistance. But the test that blew my mind, and I was like, oh, and it's a very simple test to know whether or not that insulin resistance may be an issue with you. If your waist circumference is larger than your hip circumference, you 100% have some form of insulin resistance. You're already in that category. The good news is all of it is irreversible. It is reversible. I keep saying that backward. It's reversible. So, and you can start today. Even if you already struggle with an autoimmune or chronic type illness, you can reverse the insulin resistance and drastically improve your quality of life. So, very good news. What exactly, though, is insulin resistance? And I didn't really fully understand it until I did this deep dive. So, insulin resistance is a condition where when we eat too many carbohydrates, the carbohydrates break down in our bodies as glucose. So, blood sugar. The pancreas releases insulin so that glucose doesn't stay in our bloodstream. It needs to get into our cells where it needs to do the work. We need glucose for our cells to function. But because we have been eating drastically more carbohydrates than our bodies can process, our signaling is off. So here's an example. Like one of your kids or your grandkids or a niece or a nephew are going, mom, 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 or aunt, aunt, or grandma, 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 like 5,000 times so that you don't even notice anymore. That's basically what is happening with our insulin signaling when we eat too many refined carbs, which again is most of us in America. And so you're telling the body, I need insulin, I need insulin, I need insulin, I need insulin, I need insulin to bring the blood sugar down. And after a while, your body just can't deal with the load of carbohydrates it's been given. And so over time, because you've tuned out the insulin is not listening anymore, that insulin begins to get higher and higher and higher and higher over time. And when your insulin levels get high, again, this is different than blood sugar, you cannot lose weight. You have a switch in your body that high insulin turns on, which I will explain a little bit further why you cannot lose weight. So how many of you try to lose weight and just feel like you cannot budge no matter whatever you try? I know the last 2 years, I've hit that stage. And if that's true for you, it's because your insulin levels are too high. So we're going to talk about how do you lower your insulin levels. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to improve our insulin sensitivity so that we can begin to improve some of these difficulties and issues that so many of us struggle with. And what have most of us been told over the last 40 to 50 years? What is the one macronutrient that we've been told that if we don't get this under control, we will not be able to lose weight? Fat. We've all been told fat is bad. I'm a child of the 80s and 90s. I struggled with an eating disorder through high school and college. Most of my life, I was told and led to believe if you want to lose weight or keep weight off, go low fat. Most of us have believed the lie and it's a lie, that fat makes us fat. Fat causes heart disease. Fat causes obesity. For decades, we have believed this, and most of us have followed a low-fat diet in order to stay away from these issues. The problem, when the food industry took out the fat, they put in sugar, extra carbs. And most of us have become addicted to a high-carb diet because we've been trying to avoid the fat. And what has happened in the last 30 years as we've watched this trend? Obesity and diabetes and metabolic disorders have skyrocketed to the point where, like I said at the beginning, 93% of Americans now have some sort of metabolic dysfunction or insulin resistance. Now, when we eat carbs, our bodies don't know how to process it well. They're like, what is this? And we end up with high blood sugar and over time, high insulin levels. And those insulin levels make it absolutely impossible to lose weight. So do you see the problems mentioned above, how they're connected to high insulin? Overconsumption of carbohydrates is at the root. Not carbohydrates per se, but it's the overconsumption and the type of carbohydrates. Most of us were alive at the time when we could go to the grocery store and we could avoid the junk food aisle. But guys, I don't know about you, but now with all the Walmart self-checkouts, it is literally like 8-foot gauntlet that I have to go through to get to the to get to the checkout aisle that is junk food, junk food, junk food, junk food, junk food all along the side. Cute little trinkets. Like I'm glad my kids are not little and I don't have to take them through anymore. Because here's the thing. Reese's peanut butter cups are like my downfall. Peanut butter and chocolate were made to go together, in my opinion. And I have a hard time walking past the aisle every time I go through the grocery store and saying no to the Reese's peanut butter cups, which, we have never ever lived at a time when there are so many ways to eat so badly, so easily. When there were so many options that these companies that are making these foods, they know they are making us addicted. I mean, there's chemical engineers. My son is going into chemistry. He could get a very good job at one of these mega food companies as a chemist. Specifically, they help engineer the food to taste better and to trigger sections in the brain that made us want more. Carbohydrates are highly addictive substances, especially the way they make them now. They have high fructose corn syrup in them, food dyes, toxic fats, and specific chemicals, like I said, that make us want more. And the combination of high carb and high bad fat is really what is making us sick. It is what is making us insulin resistant and what is making us literally addicted to this food. Fat is not the problem. When we take in the amounts of overly processed carbohydrates, it causes a rapid spike in our blood sugar. And when our blood sugar spikes, our body releases insulin. Our pancreas says, send out the insulin. And when insulin is released and stays high and is stuck in that high mode, your body is locked into fat storage mode. And so that lock makes it impossible to burn fat when it's that high. Somebody trying to get in. So I want you to think about what you eat on an average day. Ask yourself, is this thing that I'm eating going to spike my blood sugar? It's a pretty simple question if we begin to understand a little bit of the science behind it. Is it going to cause my body to need to release insulin in order to deal with it? So in the chat, and because I don't know any of you, you're not going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. Tell me what you ate for breakfast. Because the typical American diet, at least like when I was feeding my kids, honestly, it was cereal, toast. We ate cinnamon rolls, like all the things. I've changed I've done a lot of work in my nutrition, especially since going through nutrition school, but in the last 10 years and the last 3 months, especially, I've been like, oh, I can even tweak this a little bit more. And I've noticed a change. So this morning I had 3 slices of bacon and 3 eggs and half an avocado. Old me would have freaked out over that. But bacon and eggs is a high fat, high protein breakfast. And that high fat and high protein breakfast does not spike your insulin. So we want to think about that. Like I said, most breakfast foods are carbohydrates. Most breakfast foods in the standard American diet spike our insulin and our blood sugar, and it makes it impossible for us to burn that fat. So the other sneaky thing is when insulin is high, it makes us hungry. How many times in your life have you been like hungry all the time? You would eat and then 2 hours later, you're hungry again. That's because the food you're eating is spiking your insulin, unless you're just simply not eating enough. Your insulin is high and it makes you store fat, and then it makes you more hungry. So if you're in a cycle of, oh my gosh, I feel hungry all the time, you are not eating enough protein. You are not eating enough fat, and you're eating too many carbohydrates. And so what happens, it eventually leads to your blood sugar crashing because your insulin is stuck up here. And it's going to take all that blood sugar and put it into the cells. But now guess what? A lot of times that insulin will overshoot and it will cause your blood sugar to tank and go low. And now you're really, really hungry. So most women in midlife and lots of other people too are living in this blood sugar roller coaster all day long. Blood sugar is low because maybe you had something that caused your insulin to spike and your insulin overshot. So now your blood sugar has tanked back down. Now you eat something and guess what you're craving when blood sugar is low? Carbs, right? Carbs, that's the thing we reach for. So most of us, again, are living on that insulin roller coaster all day. It's not just that the roller coaster itself is making us unhealthy, sick, and overweight. It also feels terrible to be on that roller coaster all day. And think about our kids in school and our college. Like my kids are all college age now, but we wonder why our kids struggle with mood. We wonder why we struggle with mood when we feel like this all day long, when our blood sugar is doing this all day long. It's not necessarily just bad attitudes. It's like literally their bodies are going, help, help. It's a red flag. Um, so the other issue with this is this roller coaster causes inflammation to spike. It's a very, very inflammatory way to live. So what happens when our inflammation is up high? Um, it spikes our cortisol levels. Think of how your body feels when you know your blood sugar is kind of low and you feel like I've got to eat something right now. I've got to eat something or drink some orange juice, or usually the thing you're craving is something sweet. And guys, I want you to understand the difference. I'm talking about type 2 and insulin resistance. This is not the same as type 1. Okay. So just kind of help differentiate that. So you're craving something sweet, and think of how bad we're feeling and how many times we're doing that multiple times a day. So blood sugar, insulin roller coaster is very stressful for your body, and your body will pump out stress hormones because your body is like, man, this is really stressful to live in. So now we also have high cortisol levels. And guess what high cortisol levels do to your blood sugar? It mobilizes your blood sugar. So now we've just made this roller coaster a whole lot more dangerous. We took the seat belts off of our seats in the roller coaster. And that's basically what most Americans are living on. Add to the fact that processed white carbs and sugar is more addictive than cocaine. Remember, I said the chemists literally make food in a lab. Most of our processed packaged food is been I'm seeing some shifts and changes away from that. Walmart just declared that they're taking out dyes and certain chemicals. Simmons and Tyson just said they're taking out certain dyes and chemicals, but it's because they're listening to the consumer. People are looking for more of like, I want that stuff out. And like you said, it's hard to read food labels. We'll talk a little bit about that. And Shana, you asked a question, a very good question that I'm going to get to at the end. So, so, it's like I said, blood sugar is carbs and sugar is more addictive than cocaine. So these are highly addictive substances that also cause dopamine release, which is why we keep going back. It's a similar process to the brain when we do drugs or drink alcohol. So these processed carbs, breads, chips, cookies, sugary snacks, granola bars create a cycle of cravings and dependency. And what happens over time? Our waist circumference starts to grow. Insulin is a growth hormone, y'all. Insulin is a growth hormone. So now we have high insulin levels from all of these carbs we've been eating, and insulin is a growth hormone that causes things to grow, like our waist and other areas of the body that we didn't want to grow. It also causes cancer cells to grow. Did you know that cancer cells feed on sugar? If you want to help treat a cancer, you start it by cutting the sugar out. Cancers grow so fast. They grow so fast that their primary food is sugar. They can't really feed on any other fuel. So think about the fact that for most people, 90% of our waking hours are probably spent in this blood sugar being high or your insulin high, those constant cravings, never being able to lose weight, fatigue after meals, bloating, difficulty going very long without snacks. And that's where most of us find ourselves. I have been there, absolutely. And this insulin resistance, over time, our fat cells are taking in as much glucose as possible. And our cells get to the point where they're like, we can't take this anymore. The cell is going to burst and die. And what ends up happening, the cells themselves start to leak out cytokines. I don't know if you remember all those cytokine storm from COVID. Our body does that when it's in a high inflammatory state. So they start to leak out inflammatory molecules that are yelling, things are not good here. We have more than we can handle. Like, send help. Inflammation is actually our body's warning system. It's supposed to be there. We just don't understand what those alarm bells are doing. The fat cells grow so big that they cut off their own blood supply. So the body has a self-preservation mechanism that says, we need more blood flow, we need more help here. And the body is literally crying out for us to lower the blood sugar, lower the insulin level so that the inflammatory cytokines can also lower. And what happens over time is the high insulin puts high amounts of stress on the body with these pro-inflammatory molecules called cytokines, and it damages our blood vessels and organs. Over time, it fills up the arteries, it clogs up the heart. That's actually what the root cause of our heart diseases are. So they say you don't eat bacon and eggs because of the fat lie. It's actually the fat combined, the bad fats combined with too much insulin acts like concrete in our arteries and in around our heart. So the real culprit is not fat. The real culprit is all the damage being done to our organs and blood vessels from this high insulin level and all of the stress molecules that our bodies are releasing. And this chronic inflammation creates a vicious cycle that feels like a treadmill you cannot get off of. You're stuck. And I know many of us feel this. I mean, many of us feel this. So a lot of us are living in this cycle, even when we don't realize it. So remember the brain fog, the fatigue, the mood swings. So in Dr. Bickman's research, in his book, Why We Get Sick, and he makes the link between insulin resistance and obesity. He makes the link between insulin resistance and diabetes, or when, they're like, you're pre-diabetic. He makes a link between insulin levels and heart disease. Now they're finding that there is a link between insulin resistance and Alzheimer's and dementia. And this one actually kind of freaked me out. We have family members where dementia runs in the family, does run in the family, but we've seen more early onset dementia. Well, you know what they're finding? Alzheimer's disease can also be called type 3 diabetes. It's insulin resistance in the brain. So many of us either know or have known women who are in their late 50s and 60s and ended up dying really young before anybody ever questioned if insulin resistance was a possible link. Also think of things like PCOS, hormone imbalances, many cancers related to this again, because insulin is a growth hormone and it causes things to grow. And it usually causes things to grow that we do not want to grow. And this doesn't mean insulin isn't important. Okay, we have to have insulin to survive. That's why type 1 diabetics have to have insulin and take a shot. You would not survive without it. We need it, but we need it in the levels that our body can actually process and deal with. Okay, B says, I keep freezing. Am I freezing for everyone else? Shayna, am I freezing for everyone else? I'm wondering if I'm glitching. Okay. Vivian says yes, no. Okay. Well, we'll keep going. And hopefully, if my audio is okay, it's okay if my face freezes. Hopefully I just don't freeze in some like weird position. So is the audio still going good? Thumbs up, thumbs down, yes or no? Thanks, guys. This is helpful. Is the audio still going good? Good? Yes? Okay. Well, then we'll just keep going and plugging through. And sorry if our faces are freezing.
Yeah, your audio is good. Your audio
okay.
is good. It's just your face freezes every now and then.
Okay. Well, we'll keep going if the audio is fine. Okay. So now that I've told you all the horrible stuff, let's get to the good stuff, the solutions, because there really are good solutions. So we're going to go over 5 key ways, and they're actually very, very doable, guys. after I was reading this, I'm like, oh gosh, this is so depressing. But now we're getting to the good part. So I want you to write down 5 key ways um, that we can reduce insulin resistance. And there's no chance that 90% of us on here aren't struggling in this already. So this is good news. One, reduce your carbohydrate intake, mainly over processed sugars, grains, starchy carbs. So ask yourself, is what I'm going to eat cause my blood sugar to spike and then my insulin to spike and stay high? And you can know this pretty easily, guys. The data is published on all of these foods. If you eat this is going to spike your insulin. You can find lists of the glycemic index of every food out there. And I would highly recommend that if you are struggling with this, and the doctor's already especially talking about it, ask for a continuous glucose monitor. Find out, what does rice do to my blood sugar? What does a potato do to my blood sugar? What does broccoli do to my blood sugar? What does cauliflower do to my blood sugar? What does a cinnamon roll do to my blood sugar? There are lots of CGMs out there, and I would highly recommend that if this is something that you know for sure you're struggling with, that you talk to your doctor about this. And I know more and more insurances are paying for that. It's really helpful to see what you're eating. And you might think, this whole grain muffin, or it's a bran muffin, it's totally healthy for me. But when you see how your body responds to it, you'll be aware of whether it has a dramatic effect or a minimal effect. And it's going to be a little bit different for every person. So really consider cutting out sugar, processed grains, starchy carbs, and replace those with, I still do honey. I still do, but also in moderation. Maple syrup. Sometimes I'll use coconut sugar, but pretty much if I can't get the sweetness from nature, I don't eat it anymore. I don't crave it anymore, but it took time to get there. And you're going to need to replace with proteins and fat. So meat, fish, nuts, leafy greens, healthy fats, so that you're getting full on things that are nourishing your body and not spiking your blood sugar levels and raising your insulin. There is a theory out there that until your body gets a certain amount of protein, it will continually be hungry. And I don't know if it's just the protein, but I do know that we will keep being hungry and we will keep eating until our body knows that it has what it needs, until it gets enough protein and it gets enough fat. Our brain is made up of fat. Again, think Alzheimer's spikes in the last 30 years, what they said, don't eat fat. Well, we are literally depriving our brains of what we need. And if we prioritize those, especially early in the day, you don't start out your day with a roller coaster. Now, was it hard for me to make a switch from eating starchy carbs or cereal to bacon and eggs? Yes, because I frankly like cinnamon rolls. I frankly really like pancakes with a lot of syrup on it. And it took me time to go, wait, this is what my body really needs. Now, when I wake up, I crave basically like a chicken leg. I'm like, wow, I just feel better this way. And so if you prioritize those early in the day and aim for 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal, but especially at breakfast, I would, so aim for about 100 to 120 grams total of protein a day, which is way more protein than what I ever ate. So I go for like 30 to 40 grams at breakfast alone. And that might look like 3 eggs and 3 slices of bacon. And that's great. I had to take one of my kids actually to the ENT this morning because he's a swimmer and has had some chronic swimmer's ear. And I loaded up our plates with bacon and eggs, and we hopped in the car and actually drove to the ENT and eaten bacon and eggs in the car. So it's hard to make the switch if you're used to eating starchy, carb-loaded, sugary breakfast, but it's so important to begin doing this. And many people notice that when they start doing this, they begin feeling better fairly rapidly. because they can literally feel their body calming down. I've been working with a handful of women here just recently and sent me a picture within 72 hours, and you could see, like, she hadn't lost any weight, but you could see the puffiness had come down within 72 hours of just switching out. I'll talk about that later, but it was already like, wow, okay, I didn't even think it would work that fast for some people. So, and you do add in things you do need. So you're going to be taking out the processed sugary carbs, and you're going to add in healthy proteins and fats. And if you're hungry again within an hour of eating, what has happened is whatever you ate, you spiked your blood sugar and insulin went high, and now you're hungry again. So if you're learning how to eat really well, learning how to lower inflammation, avoiding processed seed oils, lots of junk food and the overly processed packaged foods are loaded with seed oils. So, soybean oil, canola oil, rapeseed oil, those oils increase inflammation too. And remember, at its core, insulin resistance is an inflammatory state. We want to reduce that inflammation as well so that we can with the way that we're eating. If you've had enough protein and fat, you will not be hungry for a good 5 hours. That has been rather shocking. I was always snacking every 2 to 3 hours. But if you are getting the protein and fat your body needs, I'll go from 7:30 to 12:30 and I'm not like dying. Okay, so not only have we been told that fat is our problem, and now we have diets that are high in carbs and not high in the good fats. Many of us are on cholesterol lowering medicines, and cholesterol is the substrate for all the hormones that our body makes and for our brain tissue. Think again, what's happening with so many people now? Our bodies, our brains need this. Almost all of our good hormones are made from cholesterol. So you want to be careful to get plenty of good fat. I'm thinking like avocados, coconut oil, avocado oil. I literally cook with bacon grease in the mornings or beef tallow, butter. You want those. You want those in your kids and your grandkids' brains. You want to make sure that those are the fats that you're getting in. It is not the fat that is making us sick. It is the overly processed carbohydrates in them and bad fats in them in the form of seed oils that are making us sick. Okay. So I forgot to say number two. Number two is add in those healthy things, protein and fat. One, take away the carbs. Two, add in the proteins and fats. And again, aim for, minimum 25 grams of protein per meal. Breakfast, I try and hit a good 40 because I like a day like today, I work with elderly people and I was walking and visiting like a good chunk of the afternoon. So I'd had a big breakfast. I didn't even get a chance to eat lunch till 1 o'clock. And I was surprised I was not that hungry actually at all. And then I had a really big like chicken salad, like a honkin' chicken salad. And guys, I don't even really like salad. But tonight for dinner, we came home and we made a big thing of sheet pan fajitas. And I loaded up. I loaded up on the protein and my greens at lunch, and it was just protein and greens with some cheese sprinkled into it and like lemon and balsamic vinegar dressing. And then dinner tonight, I was not hungry again till about 5:30. I just realized my computer is okay. I think I've got the battery left. It's not plugged in. If you see me dive over the side, I'm scrambling to plug my computer in. And dinner tonight was a big thing of sheet pan fajitas and avocado. Like I probably ate an entire avocado and the fajitas, but without the chips, without the wrap. I put a bunch of tomatoes in it and it was delicious. And I'm very full. So add in the healthy proteins and the healthy fats. Okay, number 3, prioritize strength training. We have been fed a lie that if we lift weights, it's going to make us look bulky. It's going to make us look a certain way. And strength training gives us the shape that we want. And more importantly, that muscle that you're building is key to your longevity, my longevity. Several studies in the last year have shown that there is a direct correlation between the amount of lean muscle that you have and your longevity. Remember when we were young, at least when I was young, I was made fun. I was a swimmer. My kids are, which is funny because I have swimmers now, but I had honking thighs. Like you had to have big legs for those powerful kicks. Thunder thighs. How many of you were called thunder thighs when you were, in high school? Well, when I was a swimmer, I had these really strong, powerful legs. Guess what? Studies now show that thunder thighs are really healthy. Like you want those. I'm talking about muscly thighs. Um, you live long. The stronger your legs are, the easier it is for you to get up and down off the floor. That muscle, having really strong legs and good balance is key for our longevity. And now that I work with older people, I'm like, oh yeah, the ones that are living into their 90s and upper 90s. We had a lady who celebrated her 100th birthday this last year. Those ladies are, I mean, they're little and they're elderly, but they're strong. I mean, yes, they do have their little walkers now, but I'm like, I hope I'm like you when I'm older. Um, so if you want, um, okay, the other thing that happens is muscle is very sensitive to insulin. So remember, part of the problem is that many of us are insulin resistant, and if you want to stabilize insulin, muscle building is another huge benefit for lowering your insulin. As you build muscle, that helps you use your glucose more efficiently. That lean muscle correlates to longevity. And you show me somebody that has a lot of lean muscle, and they are probably somebody who's going to live a long time. Lean muscle really helps us to really use our insulin more efficiently. I'm going to answer the question about the skin at the end because I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, and I don't want to squirrel, and we're close to being done. So, something really practical that you can do as soon as you're finished eating, go for a 10 to 15-minute walk. Like, get up, even before you clean up the dishes, go for a walk. One, it's just good to get outside. In the winter, if you get a treadmill or those little walking treadmills, and you can do both, do 20 to 40 squats, which when I started this, guys, 15 like was killing me. Now I can pop out 40 squats pretty easily. And if you struggle with bad knees or you've had knee replacements, just make sure you get that good walk in. And that right there, your body immediately goes, I'm starting to use what I'm taking in immediately. So if you do this right after you eat, go for the 10 to 15-minute walk, do the 20 to 40 air squats. It will drastically lower your blood sugar and stabilize your insulin. And for those of you wearing monitors, you know that it doesn't take much. A 10-minute walk and your insulin is back down into the normal range. And there is so these are just a couple of super practical things that you can do. And if you're going to a birthday party or something like that, and an event where you just know you're going to be eating out of the healthy zone, just build in more walk and squat time. Get your body moving. Yes, chair exercises for those that cannot do the squats would be absolutely crucial and huge and really helpful. Okay, number 4, improve sleep and reduce stress. Being in a high insulin state can cause your body, like I said, to reduce to spike its cortisol. Poor sleep is another thing that also causes your body to release cortisol, which is our stress hormone. Again, insulin is not a bad thing. We need insulin or we would die. Cortisol is not a bad thing. If we didn't have cortisol, we would die. Too much is the issue. Too much cortisol is very stressful for your body. And guess what? I know Shanna has talked about it. I use a lot of essential oils and other products that help me sleep. 3 to 5 milligrams of melatonin at night. I have a couple products, Shanna, that I can share at the end if people are interested, like Sleep Essence or some very specific essential oil blends that I like to diffuse that are huge for helping me sleep. My kids diffuse these at night. They used to be like, oh, mom, like whatever. And, now they're like, I need my specific oils for sleep. Magnesium, taking a good magnesium supplement before you go to bed. Women, how many of us realize we are very low on progesterone, especially over the age of 40? Our progesterone starts to drop. The lack of progesterone is one of the main reasons we do not sleep well. So I like to take like a magnesium salt bath in the evenings, 3 to 4 nights a week. And I use a product from Young Living called Progestance Plus. It is from wild yams. It is a bioidentical progesterone serum, and I will put that like on my inner thighs, on my belly. I'll drop it under my tongue, put it over my throat, like 3 drops in the morning, 3 drops at night. And especially at bedtime, it has helped me sleep um, a whole lot better. So that most of us are just very deficient in progesterone. Um, so getting sleep is very vital for insulin resistance. You've probably already noticed this, but if you've had a bad night of sleep, like if a child has been up at night, or my husband is a trucker and he has a weird schedule a couple of nights a week where he just goes in 4 hour shifts of sleeping, that will spike your insulin. You will crave high sugary foods in the morning. My niece is an emergency room nurse. They literally call it after the 12-hour shift breakfast. And what do they all want? Like honkin' cinnamon rolls because it's stressful. Our body goes for that. Um, However, what we need, because stress, cortisol, insulin is craving like some help and assistance here, we need protein, we need fat. And losing sleep will make us crave all the wrong things the next day. So, number 5, supplement really wisely. Um, there is a product called Ningxia Red that I love. It's a powerful supplement drink on the market that helps combat insulin resistance. And I've been using it for drinking it for 10 to 12 years. But in the last 2 years, and especially in the last 6 months, as I've been working with people in this particular area, I have been amazed at how much when they're changing their diets and really focusing on the core issues at the same time that they're putting in the good stuff, um, that they're getting phenomenal results. Like A1C levels are coming down. High cholesterol is getting back into the normal range. The LDL, HDL is getting to where it needs to be. I'm okay with kind of high cholesterol as long as your LDL and HDL are where there should be, where the good one is supposed to be. Ningxia Red is really high in antioxidants, um, which uh, Ningxia Red is made out of goji berries, or they call them wolfberries, and they're packed with polyphenols and essential oils. And it's hugely beneficial in helping regulate blood sugar, reducing oxidative stress, which think of like a rusty barbed wire fence. And that's what our cells are. And so what antioxidants do is they come in and they shine up and clean the rust off and repair that it doesn't just take the rust off, because eventually rust will eat right through barbed wire, but it comes in and repairs. That's what antioxidants do, and the polyphenols do. So it comes in, cleans, and repairs. And that's what Ningxia Red basically is. And so um, I do what is called a 14-day reset. And I've been doing this for probably the last year. I did it for 3 months in a row the first time, took a couple months off, and then did it again. And now I'm doing it quarterly. But basically, it is 14 days of you very, very strictly eat an insulin resistant nutrition plan. They actually have 4 to 5 different nutrition plans, but if you know you're struggling with insulin resistance, I highly recommend doing the insulin resistance nutrition plan. They have like a basically like no carb, no sugar, 2 week nutrition plan. They have a keto plan. They have a paleo plan. They have a GAPS diet plan. They have a just Whole30 plan. But if you know you are struggling with creeping up A1C levels and this is an issue for you, they have a very specific nutrition plan that is geared towards this. Now, are you going to solve it all in 14 days? Absolutely not. You're not. What they highly encourage you to do is when you finish this 14 days, um, you stick to the same nutrition plan about 80 to 90% of the plan. and then do it again the next month. And you hardcore it for 14 days. And then for a month, 80 to 90%, hardcore it for 14 days. So you have 90 days. It takes 90 days for your cells to really begin to change over. And people that took their A1C levels at the beginning and that their A1C levels at the end of that 90 days saw pretty drastic improvement. And so it is one way you can just do the nutrition plan. Absolutely. It's just going to take longer to get that into place. The Ningxia Red just helps it move a little bit faster, and it gives that really good high antioxidant content that helps bring that inflammation down further. And it's kind of sweet. It's a whole food puree, so it's a drink. It's not a juice. It's a whole food puree, so it has the protein in it. It has the Shayna, you can hop on and help me out if you want. But it's actually a drink that has protein in it as well. So it doesn't spike your blood sugar levels. Now I went in this order that I went because supplements are amazing. There's literally nothing like Ningxia Red, but you need to fuel your body with good nutrition. Your body needs to be fueled with the right stuff. You need to feed your body well. And that is the most honestly important thing, guys. Then you do so removing the carbohydrates, adding the healthy proteins and fats, make sure you're strength training, make sure you're sleeping well, make sure you're supplementing really wisely. And it's just huge for your body. So I think I talked about magnesium helping. Yep. And another thing I've used over the last several years is apple cider vinegar. I'll do like a shot in my water in the morning, and I'm talking like a 32 ounce of water. You can get those apple cider gummies. It's also a really good way to lower those post-meal insulin spike responses. So really helpful for that. Berberine is a supplement that can also be very helpful to take after meals. So these supplements can all be really great. But again, the foundation is food and sleep and stress regulation. Insulin resistance is a hidden driver that we all need to take pretty seriously. Even if you don't have a chronic issue, just the way our American culture has been going. And, so many of us are struggling in that area. So start prioritizing protein and healthy fat, moving your body, walks, squats, if you can, lift weights, simple changes in your supplements, like getting in Ningxia Red every day. I strongly encourage a 14-day reset. The other thing about the 14-day reset is there is a whole group and community on Facebook that shares a lot of recipes. You can go in and troubleshoot with people. They give you a lot of encouragement. There's just a lot of better success when you're doing things together with people and community. As a nutritional health coach, I've seen people, if they're trying to do it on their own, might make it for a while. But having a community of support to encourage you, especially when you're like, I just want the cheesecake, for whatever. But when you're trying to work to a certain goal and get to a certain health goal, you need that community of encouragement to cheer you on. And so, yeah, I just order a 14-day reset box every month, and I drink the Ningxia Red even off the reset. I do 2 ounces instead of the higher recommended doses because it just makes me feel better. It's a great way to just kind of get some of the extra fuel into your body. And it's a great way to lose weight. So, I'm going to stop the recording here and open it up for questions. That's what I have.